just a little bit about power and contact. I had a post on the Reddit about this. Because it is the thing about testing, say, contact and power swinging, that is testable looking at exit velos in custom practice, which is useful. It's kind of an example of the dangers of using statistics. And so it was shown you gain huge amounts of power swinging, but you need to understand that it destroys your PCI. I did some testing and it does affect the results PCI. So if you have a 99 contact hitter and you power swing, your PCI is smaller than that for a hitter that has 40 contact. Um, the only cases in head to head where you should power swing, I would say if you're like Gunsky and you're in BR, which he doesn't actually play, but you have like one of those like 80 Tony Gwynn cards with like 100 contact and 30 power. Yes, if you're completely cracked out and you make contact, I would do it then, but it makes no sense. And then contact destroys your power and it's going to get caught by all those great defenders. So I don't know. That's just an example of, I think it's great that other people do testing. I think there are pitfalls in understanding the trade offs. And the manual says, power swinging destroys your contact and it also destroys your timing windows. So I don't think it makes any sense to do in head to head.
Yeah.
And we've already talked about this. The biggest mystery. This is like if you can solve this, you should win the Nobel Prize of testing in the show. This is like figuring out the final equation in the universe. How do we test quartz and power? You and I have all seen all those off PCI
Hang on.
crazy
One
home
thing,
runs.
one thing I want to talk about here about the you power swing. You definitely want to do it for like rookie moments. Rookie moments,
Oh,
like
yeah,
that the
yeah.
Keith Hernandez home run moment. I got it done the
Yes.
second try. I was just power swinging, and a lot of people said, "Oh, I
Oh, yeah,
can't get
no,
it out of the park."
I meant to say that. Yeah. So the last one is really interesting. I began trying to test it and got such weird results and figured it was going to be so complicated. So this is based on what Bagunski told you and other players
Yeah.
and you've seen it yourself. Different pitch types reduce your PCI size. So, and the claim I think from Gunsky was, slurs. I think it was slurs and sliders that
Sliders are the
shrink the
worst.
results
Splitters do it.
PCI.
Yeah.
So I started trying to test that, and yes, it's true, but I got that the largest PCI with slurs and sliders, changeups were the smallest, fastballs were in between, which makes no sense. So to have a results PCI, you have to swing. And so just to generate one, I would just swing as soon as the ball was released. So the problem here is that PCI might be changed by where the pitch is
Yeah.
and then where your swing timing is,
Yep.
in addition to the pitch type. So it's almost like too many variables going around to understand exactly what is happening. But like, yeah, I think I saw your VOD, was it yesterday or the day before? There was this microscopic PCI on like this outside slider, I
Yep.
think. So it happens. The testing results seem to make no sense. This is something I'd like to take a look at, but it's just hard to figure out. So
Yeah, no, it absolutely does shrink it on sliders away and stuff, and I think it is 100% based off the results for where you swing and at the pitch type at that location. So I don't know, maybe like because it was so easy to hit outside sliders previously just by slamming your PCI and getting to it, that maybe they're like, you know what, sliders should be harder to contact away, but they might have overdone it because now Gunsy's saying like, people just throw you sliders away on like Legend, and it's so hard to get your the microscopic. You basically have the perfect to get any sort of hit on it. So I don't know. Maybe they went too far, and maybe it
yeah,
should.
the one with that would be cutters versus sliders because, like you say, like people have this mystical ability to hit outside cutters, 550 feet, which is baffling in a way they don't quite have the ability to do with slurs and sliders.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I'll try to see. But the problem is, we're against the CPU, it's hard to force them to pitch to a location. This is where you're kind of killed by. Actually, well, you might be able to test this on custom practice. So
Yeah.
that comes to mind. You can test this on custom practice and it may work.
Yeah.
So that may be what I try to do. So
Yeah, it's crazy how much is going on under the hood that we don't really know from SDS. They give us some overview, but there's so many things like that. I think they want to. Do they want to just keep a lot of their game a mystery to like basically like if they don't explain it, and then we have the mythical like, okay, this card is cracked, this one's not cracked. We don't know why, but it's got to be the player himself, not necessarily these like three different attributes or things or types and power and whatnot going into it. Do you think they want to take it like how much of it they just don't know, like because like I had the lead developer of Madden gameplay guy on, Clint, like I think it was like 4 years ago, before him and I no longer saw eye to eye and he stopped coming on the podcast. He said that we just don't know for some of these things. He just doesn't know. And how much is it there, and SDS doesn't really know because like the coding's kind of spaghetti. It's not as spaghetti as Madden, I'd assume, but and how much is it they want to keep the mythical, these cards are good, this, Ryan Braun is great because it's Ryan Braun, but, all-star, obviously, with lower contact is a lot easier for him. Like, how much of it's, like, purposeful and accidental do you think they just don't know how these cards play?
I think it's purposeful for them. I think they do want to keep an aura of mystery. I think there are a lot of players that don't want to know. They like believing these are real baseball players. They're not just lines of code in the Matrix, kind of.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of an edgelord on the Reddit, honestly, kind of combating some of those people. So I think the game is surprisingly simple, but even manipulating simple aspects can make it complex. And I think SDS, they oscillate. Like they will come out and say, they literally said in the stream, like every player has the same plate coverage. I believe, they have said the PCI is not a bat. But
Yep.
then they will go on a stream and talk about, oh, this player has an awesome swing, this player has a bad swing. I think if we knew the actual internal workings, a lot of players would be disappointed in that and how simple it is, and the thing I kind of ran about is like what are swings? I mean, people really want to believe there's some 6 degree of freedom physical model of a bat traveling at an angle through a strike zone, and
Just like
with
real life.
supercomputer level physics based modeling. And in reality, it's just putting a circle on another circle with some modifiers. So there's no biomechanical like swing thing where if you stand closer to the plate, you can't turn on inside pitches and things like that. That's all abstracted away, in
Yeah.
my opinion. As someone who works, I don't code models, I work with models. I am certain the hitting model is simpler than people think. And that what like all this nonsense about, have your cap and change your one-handed swing to a two-handed swing. I am 99.999% convinced that is all cosmetic. And there are whole web pages devoted to, oh, you want to hit high pitches better, change to a two-handed swing. I don't believe any of that stuff matters. And what people talk about for swing is contact versus right. It's the tendency, it's the hitter kind, and it's their quirks. And beyond that, it's just small sample size and
Yeah,
kind of.
I can see that. Some people like the timing windows on. Well, it's not timing, but like the timing of the kick, and it helps them time up different ball because like the kick is corresponding to when the pitcher is in their motion. You got that, but like I think like a lot of people hate this Babe Ruth card this year, even though it's got maxed out attributes and hitting at 125 because he's a whole field. Like I hate that Ruth is a whole field hitter because it ruins the card to me. If he was a pull hitter, I would love him so much better. So it's like a lot of it's just described by hitter tendency, really, on like who we like,
Yeah,
who we don't like.
I don't want to say that cosmetic, just because something's cosmetic doesn't mean, by cosmetic, I mean there's nothing in the game engine. Cosmetic things can matter, like the whole deal of like Judge versus Altuve. So it's obvious that they scale the PCI to be the same percentage of the strike zone, regardless of how tall the player is. You'll notice on a short player like Altuve, it becomes elliptical, and then it's like circular in tall players. And then they scale how fast you can move the PCI. But
Yeah,
just from a visual perspective, you're not used to what's a ball and what's a strike with Altuve if you don't use players that short. And the same thing is true of Judge. So when someone says, I can't hit with Judge or I can't hit with Altuve, there's some reality there. It's all cosmetic. That you're covering the same portion of the strike zone with the PCI if Judge and Altuve have the same contact. So it is a real thing and it does affect people. But so much of this, and so the other thing is, I think it's in the interest of content creators to have mystery about how the game works because you need to be the guru of telling people who has good swings. Does that make any sense? It's like
Yeah.
if you're a moderator on like a Reddit astrology board, you're the guru of saying this, the moon is in the house of Aquarius and that's why you're depressed today and things like that, even though none of it makes any sense. So even all like the content creators that have done testing, shout out to a couple of them that have tested like all swings at the same speed, from button press to the middle of the plate.
It's not how it
Every
used to be
swing
though.
at the same
They
speed.
they they changed a lot of hitter swings like I feel like 4 or 5 years
Yeah.
ago. When I tested it, there was definitely different swings and like outside. Well, I'm not gonna go too much into it because it's no longer this way, based off other people's testing. But like pitches on inside were different swings than pitches on the outside.
Oh,
But
really?
yeah, but that's so long ago it doesn't really matter anymore. Um,
What happened with EA and Madden is you put attributes in the game that you then stop using because to control the game and control outcomes, you need to simplify it. So the various stats in Madden like that don't actually do anything in head-to-head play, and then we have things like pitcher home run nine, which again before my time, mattered one year and it was a disaster, and so it no longer does anything. So I think to control the game and to get the outcomes they want and to prevent overpowered players, they start simplifying the internal engine. But they leave the sort of scaffolding around it to give the illusion that there's more going on than there actually is. So that might have happened with the show.
yeah, we know. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a little different because the show I feel like is more open with a lot of their stats and what they do, and Madden's a little bit more closed off, and there's a lot more to test in Madden too, as far as because there's so many different things going on in the field.